are aligned to registered qualifications to ensure that training is quality assured. To this end, as a sector, I think we are happy with the developments that are happening with the work that the NQA has started recently to explore the topic of micro-credentials. So this is something very critical for us as a sector, because the challenge that we've had in the past is that there was no clear policy nationally on how we handle the issue of micro-credentials, how we take individual unit standards and we use them to offer targeted short-term interventions to address short-term training needs. So I think that is something that we need to applaud on the NQA's part, because it's a positive movement in the right direction. I, in my personal capacity, and indeed as a national government representative, are happy to note that the recent initiatives around the use of electronic learning at public training providers such as Nakayale VTC and Enana VTC, who are offering blended learning programs up to level 5 in the civil trades, are a step in the right direction. These are examples worth emulating, as the evolving training landscape dictates a different approach to training. And we all need to embrace different modalities when it comes to delivering training. Institutions across the world are in crisis. And the crisis is not just in Tvet. Across the higher education landscape, you've got a crisis because there is a drop in demand for training programs, long-term structured training programs. Young people are moving towards short-term interventions that address the skills needs at that time. And I've said the same thing at the first conference who qualify, and then they get into the market. And this process, if it's done properly in a well-structured institution with proper quality assurance mechanisms, if it's done properly, from beginning to end, it can easily be a decade by the time those skills are in the economy. But unfortunately, employers don't have that flexibility. If you look at a lot of our employers in the green hydrogen space, in the oil and gas space, if you go to the airport, at Eros Airport today, you'll see lots of non-familiar faces. And the non-familiar faces are not coming from Okongo. They are not coming from Okaku, where I'm from. They are not coming from Mondesa, where I grew up. They are coming from Asia, because the multinational companies are importing the skills, because the immediate need right now, offshore, needs to be met. They don't have the luxury of waiting. So as training providers in the Tvet space, this reality needs to be embraced. AI systems that can generate knowledge in ways that we could not envision 20 years ago have become a reality. As a result of these systems, a large part of how we teach has become irrelevant because of our learners relying heavily on these large language models or AI systems to get information using a series of prompts. Effective prompts allow our trainees to get effective results on any topic, to develop any particular model that they would want to develop. They use AI systems just by learning a series of effective prompts. The knowledgeable instructor or teacher is still needed in the modern day classroom and workshop. But the question today and tomorrow is whether their role is sustainable in its current form. As a sector, we are facing a crossroads. We have to choose sustainability on the one juncture and stagnation on the other. Technology and evolution on the one juncture, age-old ways of doing things on the other. As a sector, a critical sector that is driving this country's economy, we need to ask the critical questions of how we can survive and thrive in a changing global environment. How can we as a sector, how can we as Tvet remain relevant? Because the reality is that we do not ask this, if we do not ask these important questions, we will not be able to meet our developmental aspirations as a sector and as a country. Sustainability will require us as a sector to be agile, flexible, and willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Government, as presented in the remarks from our Honorable Minister, presented by my dear brother, my boss, our Deputy Executive Director, remains committed to support the Tvet space, to grow, evolve, and thrive. However, this evolution is of course driven by the drive to develop technical colleges as part of the current training ecosystem from government side, which will enable us to introduce much needed innovations to our technical vocational education and training landscape. The technical colleges, which we envision to be implemented following the example of the Tvet, NEF Tvet Hub model in northern Namibia, will allow us to introduce much needed innovation to the technical vocational education and training space, albeit only at 3 institutions for now. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, and to open the floor for our panel.
Across various sectors, of which 15 are at the managerial levels, where he has been responsible for strategy, development, and execution. Before joining the Namibia Green Hydrogen Project, Mr. Joseph was a manager for institutional client service.
An overview of my journey in as far as this sector is concerned. I would like to just extend a word of thanks to the organizers for inviting me to be part and parcel of this conversation here this morning. I love that this is like a reunion. Honestly, when I walked into this room, I'm seeing so many familiar faces, former colleagues. Yes, Martin, I'm seeing you too. Colleagues that have become friends. So I'm truly honored to be part and parcel of this conversation here today for, I think, such a befitting conversation, such a befitting theme in as far as advancing Tvet for sustainable future, focusing on innovation, partnerships, skills development as well. Now, I've been asked to share with you some thoughts, and Master of Ceremony, I'll do my best to get through my presentation as quickly as possible, but without, skipping over the essence of some of the key points I would like to highlight. But the essence of my presentation is around greening Tvet, integrating social, economic, and environmental sustainability into skills. All right, there we go. So this is a brief overview in terms of what I intend to cover. Essentially, I'll start off with a bit of an introduction and then talk a bit about why greening of Tvet matters, and then take you briefly through a journey around how is government actually showing up from a policy perspective in as far as skills development, more broadly speaking, but more specifically when we talk about the environmental, social, sustainability elements as far as skills development is concerned. And then what greening Tvet actually looks like. And then I'll conclude with some remarks and some recommendations, some food for thought that I'm sure the panel will be discussing and exploring even further. So I think by way of introduction, we know that climate change is a big thing in the world, and we've seen that the policies that are actually advancing and trying to tackle this are reshaping labor markets worldwide. And we know that with climate change, there's been a rise in temperatures, and Namibia is not immune to that. I think we've experienced some of the worst droughts in the recent years, which is actually then altering the geography of jobs. There is urban migration because there are very little opportunities in other parts of the country, if we talk about Namibia specifically. We know that efforts to reduce emissions are actually accelerating, and we've also seen that countries that are implementing these similar strategies are seeing significant changes in the skills that are required across the various different sectors. Now, research has actually come out and said that 1 in 6 jobs going forward will require new skills to adapt to the green transition, and Tvet is no different from that transition that is required. Okay. Clearly, I'm a little bit impatient. All right, there we go. Perfect. Just bear with me, colleagues. So, why greening Tvet matters? Now, what has come out from the International Labour Organization, first and foremost, they've actually gone and defined what green skills are. And I like what my colleague mentioned earlier in terms of its knowledge, abilities, values, and attitudes that are needed to live in, develop, and support a sustainable and resource-efficient society. So at the core of it is about sustainability. It's not only about the technical skills and the content of those particular occupational areas, but more specifically, the softer skills, the mental capabilities to be able to apply yourself to ensure that in everything that we do, we are looking at and trying to uphold sustainability. Now, in a world that is experiencing rapid technological change, economic disparity, and also the challenge of climate change, Tvet has never been more crucial. And why is that? It's because Tvet provides and positions Namibia as well as its individuals with skills that are directly linked to the needs of industry, and in so doing provide for resilient livelihoods. Mr. MC, I think I'm going to struggle to try and keep within the time if my slides are going to take some time. But what I want to take you back a bit about is, so how is Namibia then showing up in as far as greening of skills is concerned? Now, we know of Vision 2030 and its aspirations. It strives to establish Namibia as an industrialized nation, has a number of very key transformational aspirations that cover the social and economic aspects. And these are not new to us. And I'll share with you a few. Firstly, around value addition. And this speaks to the economic side, but also on the social side. As per Vision 2030, the aspirations were for Namibia to become more industrialized and to do so by increasing the contribution of the secondary sector, which is the manufacturing sector, towards our GDP. Back in 2004, when Vision 2030 was published, we were looking at around 15%. That was the contribution of the secondary sector towards Namibia's GDP. If you ask me, where are we right now? We are still at 15%. And the target back then was 42%. So definitely we needed to do more. And in so doing, we should be in a position to create opportunities. And when we talk about secondary sector, that is the manufacturing space. That is where Tvet actually thrives. So certainly we need to be doing a lot more in that regard. The other two we are all too familiar with, job creation. If you look at Vision 2030, in 2004, the stats there were at around 33.4% was the unemployment rate for Namibia. Currently, we sit in excess of 40%, and youth unemployment is probably even higher than that. The target was 2.3%. So in how many years? 5 years' time, the target was that our unemployment rate should only be at 2.3%. We have a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen. And again, Tvet plays a key role, and I'm hoping as we have these discussions today, we'll be able to unpack how we can try and put a dent in that particular statistic. And then the last one is around income distribution. We know that Namibia is the second most unequal society in the world, second only to South Africa. For a country that only has 3 million people, 800,000 plus square kilometers of land, abundant resources, and I think the former presidents have said, I think it's an injustice that Namibia is, poor, and we have such a massive inequality and the gaps that exist with all these natural resources that we have. So for Namibia, I think the stakes couldn't be higher. We are a semi-arid country. We are prone to climate change. I've just mentioned the drought. And we have this amazing abundance of natural resources that we should be taking advantage of. To this end, especially from the green hydrogen space, we've developed some strategies, again, with government, one being the green hydrogen and derivative strategy, which articulates Namibia's aspirations to become a leader in green energy development, as well as Namibia's green industrialization blueprint, both of which offer major economic and developmental opportunities for Namibia. Now, if you look at the strategy itself, what you're seeing there was the map for Namibia articulating the 3 key green hydrogen valleys. We actually split into 3 valleys. There's the southern valley that encompasses your Karas and Hardap region, the central valley, predominantly the Irongo region and parts of the Khomas region, and then we have the northern valley that is predominantly the Kunene region. Now, where we are today, we have a number of projects that are operating within the central valley, Daures, Clean Energy, High Iron, I think a few that I can mention, at different stages of development. So I think the Central Valley is quite robust, and we are seeing quite a lot of activity there. In the Northern Valley, we currently don't have any activities in terms of green hydrogen production, but we are looking to try and get that going. And in the Southern Valley, we have the flagship program where government has a stake, and that is Hyphen. Now, one of the key initiatives that we've embarked upon as a program is to carry out what we're calling strategic environmental and social assessments for all the 3 valleys. And essentially what these studies intend to do is to understand the makeup of economic activities within those green hydrogen valleys. We know that in the southern part of the country, we have mining activity taking place. We have tourism. We have EPLs that have been allocated for prospecting purposes. And now we're going to have oil and gas as well as green hydrogen. So the idea with these CESAs, so strategic environmental and social assessments, is to make recommendations about how can all of these activities coexist from an economic perspective. But then also look at, from an environmental perspective, as I said, strategic environmental, social and assessments. From an environmental perspective, Namibia is high on biodiversity. How do we still preserve, that environment as far as possible so that our kids also still get to benefit from that? And then lastly, from a social perspective, how do we ensure that the communities that live in and around where these projects are actually going to be delivered also get to benefit, participate in those economic benefits? So look out for these conversations. It's a consultative process. We are almost completed now with the Southern Valley CESA. We should be commissioning the Central Valley CESA towards end of this year or early next year. So please make yourselves available at these platforms because, again, we'll be talking about integrating social and environmental aspects in our planning purposes, which also includes skills development. Now, when we turn to the Green Industrialization Blueprint, this was published in 2024, and essentially it took the strategy to the next level. And as far as the blueprint is concerned, it identified 2 key areas that we need to look at as a country for us to truly advance our aspirations of green industrialization. One was infrastructure, the type of infrastructure that we need to put in place to ensure that the industry can actually thrive. Rail, ports, getting green hydrogen projects running, the electric grid. We know that we currently import quite a lot of our electricity, and also the industrial zones. If we are able to establish this infrastructure, then a thriving industry can actually then be built on top of that. But in so doing, you can imagine there are opportunities that are going to be created. If you look at all of these areas, I'm just seeing Tvet all around. So how are we showing up to ensure that our people are equipped to be able to participate in these initiatives? The second aspect was around the industries that are emerging as industries that we can actually localize, that can create opportunities for our people, that could essentially be speaking to that secondary sector, the manufacturing sector, where we can actually create opportunities for Namibians. They are categorized in 4 categories. One is renewable energy hardware. So that speaks to solar panel manufacturing, electrolyzer manufacturing, and wind turbine manufacturing. How can we localize the manufacturing of these components here in Namibia? Because we recognize that not only Namibia is championing green industrialization, South Africa is doing so, and other countries on the African continent. Namibia could potentially be a gateway into the rest of Africa in as far as supplying some of these implements. Secondly, mineral refining. How can we utilize green hydrogen as well as the energy that we are producing from the solar, from the wind, to be able to support lithium refinery and as well as rare earth elements refinery? Thirdly, flat glass production with an abundance of silica or sand, But with added energy, cheap energy, we can actually produce it at a cost that is quite competitive. And then lastly, the green hydrogen derivatives, that is synthetic fuel production and HBI. How can we produce these locally and actually export them? Another area that is actually emerging that is not on this list is fertilizer production as well. And we know that agriculture is high on the agenda for our presidency, but more specifically if you look at NDP 6. And ultimately, this is the vision. Namibia is only a population of 3 million. Sub-Saharan Africa has over 200 million. Africa has over 1 billion. So in our mindset, as we're talking about developing our people and industries, we need to have a regional outlook. So whatever it is that we'll be doing, we need to be looking to ensure that it's of a quality that we can actually export. And it doesn't only necessarily have to be the products. We could potentially be exporting our talent as well. I think just something to think about as well. So, in terms of greening Tvet, what is it exactly for Namibia? It means aligning our training and education systems to these emerging opportunities, ensuring that our people and our industries are ready for a transitioning economy, and ensuring that development is not only economic, but also socially inclusive and environmentally responsive. That is what greening Tvet means to me. So how else are we showing up? NDP 6 has been mentioned earlier. There is a specific focus area, page 56 to 61 in NDP 6. If you've not had a chance to look at it, go ahead and have a look. And specifically here, there is a goal that we should develop green hydrogen as an industry to be a new source of sustainable economic growth and employment. To this end, there are very key targets that have been articulated, and I've highlighted some of them in green. The first two speak to the economic side, so green ammonia production as well as direct reduced iron production. There are targets for us by 2030. The one highlighted in green speaks to employment. And there is a target for the green hydrogen sector that by 2030, we should create up to 30,000 jobs. The majority of those are going to be in the Tvet space, 60 to 70%, hands down. Now, there are key strategies that have also been articulated in NDP 6, that support the championing and ultimately achieving those goals. One is around prioritizing skills development, research, development, and innovation. And then the second one is around advancing sustainable environmental and social development. Again, speaking to how we can integrate. So from a policy perspective, clearly you can see that government has articulated itself. It's really for us now as administrators to incorporate some of these strategies in our plans and strategies going forward. So how do we then integrate social, economic, and environmental sustainability into skills? The three dimensions. From a social perspective, Tvet can create decent work. I've mentioned 30,000 as a target by 2030, so we have our work cut out for us. And if you look at NDP 6 holistically, it actually says we'll create 500,000 jobs by 2030. Recently in Parliament, I think one of the opposition parties stood up and said, where are the 100,000 jobs that have been created for this year? Because if you're saying 500,000 jobs over a period of 5 years, you're essentially saying 100,000 jobs a year, which actually equates to about 300 jobs per day. Again, we've got our work cut out for us. So social dimension, jobs can be created. Economic dimension, we know there can be a massive contribution to the GDP of the country. There were estimates that it could potentially be up to $6 billion by 2030. I've put it in inverted commas because, again, some of those numbers are being revised downwards because the market is actually slowed down significantly. Then the environmental dimension, we know that we have these amazing resources, but how can we ensure that we harness them sustainably from an environmental perspective? So for me, bringing the three dimensions together is important. So Namibia has the environmental potential, the economic opportunity, and a social imperative. But the link between this potential, our people, is the skills development ecosystem. That is why greening Tvet is so critical. If we fail to equip our trainees with the required competencies, we risk being left behind. And I must tell you, it was mentioned earlier, there is a race, ladies and gentlemen. We have an opportunity, but the window closes fast. We need to be responsive in the way that we are able to deliver on the skills that are needed by the private sector. If we are unable to do so, yes, the Chinese are going to be the ones working at these plants, which is highly unpopular when you have, a high youth unemployment. So again, this development of qualifications that takes a whole year, I'm picking on that one because it comes to mind, and I was sitting next to my sister from NTA. I think that cannot be business as usual, colleagues. Otherwise, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. So what does greening Tvet look like? I'm coming to an end, MC. So 4 key considerations. Firstly, stakeholder engagement and partnerships. It's been mentioned. There's a need for collaboration and cooperation between the key players, industry, academia, and government, to ensure that we're able to identify what the skills gaps are and deliver on apprenticeships and other avenues to deliver on skills, ensure relevance, quality, and so forth. From the green hydrogen's perspective, we've developed or we've established what we call a national task force for education, training, and research for the sector, and it's represented by all of those stakeholders. I've seen some of them in this room, which is great. It is driven by industry, and essentially what we are working on with this task force is the development of a skills development strategy and plan. Now, Mr. Abrams mentioned earlier about an SDP. I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that we are not doing things in isolation. You can see the NTA is there. Mr. Ndakolute is also on the National Task Force. We have the Ministry of Labor on there, the NQA. All the key stakeholders are represented on there. And the idea is to ensure that we can have a holistic conversation about what are the skills and what are the opportunities that this new industry actually presents. Just to share with you a little bit of some of the snippets, the strategy, you'll be happy to know, is now being concluded, ladies and gentlemen, and is now being circulated to our National Task Force members. We will be meeting next week, Tuesday, to deliberate on these identified, key priority areas. What I can show you there in terms of estimated jobs by 2030, and this is specifically for 4 of the 6 projects that are a little bit advanced, and we've developed a model whereby as and when the industry develops, we're able to update that information so that we can come up with revised numbers. But essentially, that is where we are, sort of full-time equivalent of around 39,000 by 2030, and this is how it's split up. You can see there, in terms of installation, the percentages from solar PV, wind, battery, transmission, and hydrogen production. Those are the aspects of the value chain that we looked at, and then the various disciplines that are there. And what I can just point out there, towards the bottom of the right-hand table, construction installation workers, you can see that is 29,000. That is the majority of those identified skills areas, and that is Tvet. So it is critical to the success of this sector here in Namibia. And this just shows it across the different stages, planning and design, transport. As you can see, the installation or the construction is definitely going to be the largest component thereof. And then operation and maintenance over a long period of time. So what else is there to consider? Curriculum and program design, it's been mentioned. How do we ensure that we embed those specific green skills in our curriculum, introduce specialist green programs? There's mention of technical colleges, centers of specialization, centers of excellence. I think that is amazing. Let's ensure that we get to that level. Institutional operations, how do we equip centers to have demonstration labs as well? How can Tvet institutions themselves start to act as role models, by adopting energy efficient buildings, recycling, among other things. So let's walk the talk, as it were. Access and inclusion, how do we ensure that there are more women, females that are brought into, especially Tvet. What is also coming out from the skills development strategy is that over the last 5 years, up until 2024, less than 25% of the enrollments at Tvet institutions were female. Major disparity. How do we ensure that we bring them into the fore? Interestingly, if you obviously break it down by occupational area, there are some areas where you have a almost 50-50 split, but the more hardcore technical areas, unsurprisingly, you find more males. Monitoring and governance, very important. And one thing that I also picked up from the exercise that we carried out is around data. How are we actually capturing our data? Without data, ladies and gentlemen, it makes it very difficult to be able to plan and also see whether or not we are hitting the target. I know that there are some shortcomings and we need to find a way to be able to strengthen our data collection and maintenance. And I'm looking at the NTA. I was looking for somebody I can look at dead in their eyes. Okay, I don't see the execs here. But it's a key part of the process. And then lastly, as it was mentioned, encourage innovation, entrepreneurship, and local value addition. We're not just teaching our students to be employees, but how can we support them to be entrepreneurs? One thing that we are working on together with the World Bank is the development of what we're hoping would be an enterprise and supplier development framework that can then articulate the different types of support that we can provide for MSMEs to participate in this new economy. In terms of concluding, greening Tvet means thinking holistically. It's not just about new courses, it's about new mindsets, new operational models, new partnerships, as well as new measures of success. You know, greening Tvet, as I said, these partnerships and collaborations extend beyond just the people who are in this room, the typical partners, but also to our international partners. It's going to require significant funding. How can we optimize existing frameworks? We have the training fund, we have the NSFAF, but also the donor support that we receive. How do we ensure that we limit duplication, but we are actually working closer and better? But integration is going to be key in as far as social, economic, and environmental sustainability is concerned. They are not to be treated as silos. They need to be looked at holistically and together. And finally, Tvet is a powerful lever. It is a catalyst and enabler. And if we get the skills ecosystem right, we will not only train individuals, but we will transform industries, communities, and our country's development trajectory. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is my story. I know I took a little bit longer than I should have, but I thank you for your attention. And Master of Ceremony, over to you.
Can you do it better? That's Wonderland. One thing from Mr. Joseph's presentation, he said, and equally just like what literature taught us, countries developed because of Tvet. It's Tvet that creates employment. It's Tvet which reduces poverty and hunger. But in the land of the brave, how many Tvet providers do we have? For how many years? But poverty is there. You can touch, you can see it. He's challenging us to say there is something that we are not doing well within what? Tvet sector. It is us who are here that have to make that change and see to it that issues of poverty, hunger, is being eradicated. He continued by saying, it's not about the courses that we offer, but how relevant are those courses. Because of time, I will not spend much time on that. But it's a very, very important and a strong point, and colleagues, the challenge is there. Then we are moving because of time, and we are trying to perform some miracles so that whatever was made to fit in an hour's time, we can try to condense it and see if we can fit it in a 40-minute to 50-minute presentation. Now we are moving to the next activity, which will be the panel discussion, which will be led by Dr. Andreas Elambo. And before I read his bio, I just want to tell my brother that I would like you to perform miracle. That you must condense those activities and see to it that latest 20 past 12, we are moving to the next session, which is will be Mr. Jelly Bukes. And before I give the floor to Dr. Andreas Elambo, I would like to read his brief bio. Dr. Andreas Elambo is an Oxford-trained engineering scientist with a strong background in energy systems. His experience and passion lies in developing sustainable solutions aimed at accelerating the net zero transition. He has over 15 years of varied international experiences in the energy sector, both in academia as well as in industry. He holds a doctorate of philosophy in engineering science from the University of Oxford, a Master of Science cum laude in electrical engineering from the University of Stellenbosch, and a Bachelor of Science with first-class honors in electrical engineering from the University of Cape Town. Dr. Andreas serves as the director of the Namibia Energy Institute, NEI, which is hosted at the Namibian University of Science and Technology, that's NUST. Prior to joining the NEI, he served as a researcher fellow in digital twins for transport decarbonization at Tvet University in the United Kingdom, that's UK, Scotland, where he played an energy-focused role in a consortium that worked to establish a research hub dedicated to exploring digital twinning capability to facilitate the decarbonization of the UK transport sector. Dr. Elambo has served in various other roles, notably as the net zero transition consultant at the EA Technology Limited in UK, that's in England, the founding research and development engineer at Namibia Power Corporation, that's NAMPOwer, that's now in the land of the brave, as well as the research associate in future energy networks at the University of Blistol in UK, England. He also serves on the number of boards in Namibia and overseas. That bio on its own, it says that we are going to listen to a highly respected individual. Dr. Andreas, the floor is yours. Don't forget to perform the miracles. Yes. 20 past.
Thank you, Dr. Alovi, Director of Ceremonies. And a very good morning to everyone. I have to say it's a real privilege to serve as the moderator for the opening session. And with a very strong marching order to perform a miracle, which is not it's not among the sort of special skills I possess, but I'll do my best. I do recognize, of course, we need to race through the program somehow. I'm Andreas Elambo, as it was introduced, and I serve as the director for the Namibia Energy Institute at NUST. And For that, I have to recognize my leader here, Professor Nyati Safiso, our registrar, and of course the head of the department for Tvet. And I must also, of course, recognize our development partners, and I've also seen amongst ourselves several Tvet centers represented. In Nana, I've seen Nampower, I've seen Mercy somewhere in the audience. It's a real opportunity I think we have as a country, and the opening remarks that were delivered by Mr. Ndakolute and of course Mr. Mukendwa, it's highlighting a need, an urgent need for us to act and prepare ourselves, putting forth a workforce that responds to that urgent need. Mr. Ndakolute mentioned arrival of alien faces to Namibia, occupying a space that could be taken up by our people. But we've got to rise to that task very quickly and with proper composure. And I think that's what we will be unpacking today. I will be the moderator, as it was said, and I will try my best to get us through the program. I will appeal to the panelists to keep their remarks very brief, and also the questions to be as brief as possible, so we can cover as much as possible. The theme for our panel discussion this morning is Greening Tvet, multi-stakeholder perspectives on building a sustainable skills ecosystem. And of course, the focus is integrating social, economic, and environmental sustainability into skills development, which was very well unpacked by Mr. Mukendwa and of course, Mr. Ndakolute. I will be calling to the front the panelists one by one. And once they have had the opportunity to deliver their opening remarks, I'll ask them to occupy a seat here at the front, after which, once all of them have delivered their opening remarks, we will get into an engagement phase where we will get an opportunity to engage with the panelists. I'll ask the audience to take note of any questions as the remarks are made. I, for the sake of time, will not allow you to pose your questions right after each presentation. Does that sound like a plan? Great. Thank you so much. We will have 4 speakers who will comprise our panel discussion. The first one is Ms. Salma Shimtukeni, and I will read her short bio. Ms. Ndawilapo Salma Shimtukeni is a non-executive board member of Namibia Desert Diamonds, NAMDIA, and previously on the board of the National Petroleum Corporation of Namibia, NAMCOR. She also co-drafted Namibia's cybercrime bill in collaboration with the International Telecommunication Union and European Commission, and the Harmonization of ICT Policies in Sub-Saharan Africa's initiative. Her professional background spans roles with NAMDEB, Diamond Corporation and De Beers, Namibia Joint Venture, and Howells Solicitors UK. Salma holds 2 Masters of Law, LLM degrees in International Trade Law, University of Leeds, and Mineral Law and Policy at the University of Dundee, and a BSc in Business Management and Computer Information Systems. I will struggle to pronounce this, but it's La Roche University in the USA. She is an alumnus of board training programs with the Boardroom Africa and Institute of Directors UK. You must have interacted quite a lot of diamond and stuff, but she serves as CEO and founder of Rich Namibia. I would have guessed that. Rich Namibia Consulting. It's an honor to welcome you to the podium, Ms. Shintukeni. If I could invite you to come to the podium, you've got 10 minutes to give your opening remarks. A round of applause for her, please. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for having me. I stand on the protocol observed. I'm Dapwilapo Selma Shmutukeni, CEO of Rich Africa Consultancy. We specialize in natural resources law and policy, as well as facilitating investment linkages. Thank you. Investment linkages in the oil and gas and mining sectors. In addition, I'm the convener of the Namibia International Energy Conference. So I'm a natural resources law and policy specialist by training and an entrepreneur. Thank you so much. I got an invitation to come and, share my views on Tvet and sustainability and skills development. And it's kind of, outside my expertise to a certain extent. However, I had the opportunity to write the national energy policy as well as to contribute to the local content policy of the country. And skills development, Tvet, is a key pillar of the energy sector moving forward. My introduction is going to be quite simple, and I have on the screen a photo of Singapore. And that's like around probably 50 years between the two pictures, the before and after. And there's a reason why I'm showing that photo. And then the next image is a picture of Dubai. These are highly industrialized nations. The one nation, Singapore, had no resources, was super poor. However, the government was very focused on skills development as a catalyst to industrialize their nation. And that's a result of vision and focusing on skills development in 50 years. Dubai, they discovered oil, and then their progress was a bit faster than Singapore, but that is, the result of the discovery of oil and gas in their country. So what I would like to say, first of all, is that we are a blessed nation in terms of resources. However, it's very critical that we unlock the value so we can achieve the results of Singapore and Dubai. And skills development, especially Tvet, is pivotal to achieving that vision. It's pivotal to eradicating the challenges we face today, which is the income inequality in the country, energy poverty in the country, and the high unemployment rate. Therefore, it's such a big pleasure to be here and to share some few ideas with you guys. So before I even start on sustainability, I think we all know what it means. I think it's very important to be mindful. I know the media has been reporting a lot about the oil and gas discoveries in Namibia. As a nation, as someone who has worked on the energy policy, and the energy mix is a strategic approach for the country. So therefore, renewable energy, the green hydrogen, of course, and then now oil and gas. The discoveries are real. There is oil in our country. We're probably 5 to 6, 7 years away from first oil, where you produce oil for the first time. And so it doesn't translate into economic benefits if we do not plan for it. And the human resources are critical to unlocking the value of the industry. So when you talk about sustainability and you talk about ESG, on a global stage, it's very focused on on the environment, which is very important. However, I like to focus on the social aspect of it. We need to train our people need to participate across our economy, and we need to eradicate poverty. So the key is to create value and diversify the economy through initiatives such as the Tvet and skills development. So skills development for Namibia. I think it's very important from an oil and gas perspective to understand the oil and gas energy value chain. Right now we're at the upstream exploration phase, and there aren't as many opportunities. But however, as the industry grows and we move towards midstream and downstream, there'll be more opportunities. So oil and gas is not necessarily the answer. If you look at the Dubai case study, they were able to use the revenues from the oil and gas industry to invest in other sectors. So Namibia, being blessed to have a diversified energy economy, meaning we do not rely only on one resource, we have an opportunity to use the revenues from the oil and gas industry to invest, whether it is in agriculture, in our tourism industry, manufacturing, and we have to be mindful that the sector is supported by so many other industries. So it's not necessarily just participating directly in the industry. This industry we need hotels, we need schools, we need hospitals, we need transportation, we need aviation. The list is endless. So I think when you guys are busy putting strategies together, I think be mindful of the entire value chain in order to unlock value. One of the key, success factors, I think one of our keynote speakers mentioned the foreign faces at the airport. That is the reality of the oil and gas industry. It's a global industry. It is time sensitive. It's capital intensive. I think the beauty of it is that you do not necessarily have to have the degrees and the masters and the PhDs. There's a big opportunity for nurturing a skilled workforce that is, like for example, electricians, safety officers. There's so many other opportunities at Tvet level, and many countries such as Norway, they were able to make sure that as the industry started, they were able to capacitate their people to participate in the industry. So definitely at the beginning, you'll see many foreign faces. It's just the reality. However, with a plan and collaboration between government, industry, and academia, you'll be able to see more Namibian faces. We have, for example, great institutions like the Petro Fund, which was created in 1992, that is training so many Namibians in country and internationally as well. And many of the service companies, as well as the oil companies, have actually taken on many young Namibians to capacitate them. But you have to be very intentional about bridging, creating these partnerships, and also engaging the industry to understand what kind of skills you guys, what kind of skills they require at this point in time. Also, I think as mentioned before, the national energy policy, the local content policy, they have explicit policy statements around Tvet and the participations of Namibians in the industry. So therefore, it's very important to create centers of excellence, have mentorship programs, and of course, research and development. You have, countries like Brazil, because I think it's very important to also look at nations that have done well in that space, but also nations that have, made mistakes in that regard. But the key is to start now, because if you want in 10 years' time to have Namibian faces participating in the industry, you have to be very intentional. The beauty of, I think the Tvet is that many of the skills are transferable. So, and also I think the realities of technology and AI, that's a reality we are facing. But I've been following the conversations, and people who are skilled, like electricians, they're going to have jobs. And I think they're going to be one of the most paid around the world. As we become more technologically advanced, we need more people, we need more electricians in the industry. So in terms of the skills ecosystems, it's very important to leverage partnerships and to also understand, I think one of the keynote speakers spoke about, time is of the essence and urgency. And it's very important to engage the industry to find out what it is they need right now. So just back to what I was mentioning, just good examples. I mean, you have like the Singapore really just focused on capacitating their people. And now it's one of the world-class societies and economies in the world. Dubai, they diversified. They used the oil to become an innovation hub where they attract talent from around the world as well. Norway did the same thing and invested heavily in research and development and sustainable wealth in terms of like a sovereign wealth fund for future generations, which speaks to sustainability. I think we have an opportunity to learn from others, but I always discourage a copy and paste approach. We are Namibians, we understand the lay of the land, we understand our needs, and we have to kind of customize strategies to address the challenges on the ground. So just, I guess, coming to my conclusion, skills development must enable participation in the entire oil and gas value chain. It must empower Namibians to create and share value, and must also encourage problem-solving mindsets. We must link skills to opportunities, not just to train, but to enable participation and innovation. I think one of the things I was thinking about as I was listening to everyone sharing their insights, as a Namibian who, for a long time I was called a career student, and because I went to go study. I like research, and I started the Namibia International Energy Conference before the discoveries. But the reality was that when I came back from school with all these degrees, Leeds University, Dundee University, I studied in the States, I could not get a job. And that's why I started my own company. And then fast forward to the future, I'm not so crazy anymore. I was a visionary, etc. But I think the reality is that many of the young people are not going to be absorbed by jobs. So I think we need to also change the framework or the mindset to train people so they can run their own businesses and create opportunities for other people. We won't be able to absorb all the young people. And I think also it's very important, because I have a Future Energies Leaders program where we mentor young people in the energy sector, specifically oil and gas, and we connect them to the oil companies or service companies. But I think it's so important to ask the young people what it is they want to do. And we have to keep up with the times. There's technology, there's AI. My youngest brother, he's into gaming, and gaming is $1 billion industry around the world. And many Africans, young Africans, because they can't find jobs, they're actually pursuing other interests that, they're making money online. So I think also just to challenge the institutions, I think in terms of, innovation is in your theme of your conference, but innovation is also having the young people in the room and asking them what it is that they want to do, and also support them in their pursuit of entrepreneurship, access to finance, training, content creation. I think that's also an area that institutions like yourselves can make a real difference. We need to teach people how to fish and not just set them up for jobs. I thought there would be young people in the room, so that slide was for them, but it's fine. You guys can pass on the message. I think the reality, the world is changing really fast. Our young people, not only in Namibia, but on the continent, are restless because there's so many opportunities for them. So it's very important that, we encourage them to actually be creative and to be agile and to think beyond traditional paths. When I was starting out, you had to be a lawyer, doctor, the engineer. Those were the key streams you chose. And I did law, actually, but, I ventured into entrepreneurship. I also think leadership begins with vision and courage. I believe in self-leadership, and, you know, many of you are leaders in this room, and countries like the Singapores and the Dubais, they, you know, it's vision that led them to where they are today. And I think it's very important that we encourage young people to stay curious, to take initiative, and to be flexible and prepare for the jobs of tomorrow. Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm done. There it is. So yeah, coming to the end of my remarks, it's just, you know, tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And that's just the reality of the world we live in. And your work is very important to make a difference in Namibia. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shimtukeni. The message to the youth, I was looking around the room. There are not very many in here. And I hope Dr. Kloppers has taken note of the request that was made. If we could take this to the regions, maybe we will have a greater audience of the youth. Because, I mean, it's inspiring to see someone who has started an organization. So that could really inspire the youth. But I'm also hoping they are on the virtual platform. Maybe. Good. Okay. So we're moving on to the next presentation. It will be by Mr. Nicholas Limbo. He serves as a skills development specialist at the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program. I'll try and race through the bio. At some point we might have to not do this because it's really going to take a bit of time, but I will read through this now. Mr. Nicholas Limbo has over 28 years experience in the education and Tvet sectors, beginning his career as a secondary school teacher in southern Namibia in January 1997, an opportunity for maths there. Then serving in a senior role in education, training and development in the then Ministry of Safety and Security from 2001 to 2003. He spent the past 21 years working in Tvet, training and institutional strengthening, systems, program design and development. He has held mid-level to senior roles as a vocational education officer in the former Ministry of Higher Education, Training and Employment Creation, 2003 to 2004, seconded from the ministry to serve as a Tvet Curriculum Development Coordinator at the Project Management Unit for the establishment of the Namibia Training Authority, NTA, Curriculum and Training Program Development Lead at the International Training and Education Center for Health, ITEC, Health Systems Training Program Coordinator at IntraHealth International, Senior Manager, Operations Training and Curriculum Development at the Namibia Community Skills Development Foundation, COSDEF. He currently serves as a Skills Development Specialist at the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program, tasked with developing and operationalizing, it's always a hard word to pronounce, a National Skills Development Strategy and Plan SDSP for the sector, as well as supporting local content and small and medium enterprises' participation in the green economy. With undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications in education and business administration, Mr. Limbo has extensive experience in the design, implementation, and evaluation of quality assured training, capacity development, and improvement programs for varied occupational areas and targets, human capital development and organizational development, strategic planning, and organizational performance improvement. He was part of a consultancy team that developed the framework and principles for the registration of competence-based CBET unit standards and qualifications for the Namibian Tvet system on the National Qualifications Framework, NQF. Very much involved in this whole value chain. And there you have it, the bio for Mr. Nicholas Limbo, the next presenter and a part of our panel. Do come to the front, sir. You've got 10 minutes. Indeed, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ilombo.
Just a second, we're just trying to load up Mr. Limbo's presentation. In that sense, could I get an indication who will help with that, loading it onto here? And maybe, Mr. Limbo, with respect, if you wouldn't mind, then we could get on to the next speaker while this is being loaded. Sure. Yeah, thank you. Good. Thank you. I know he will take that objectively, so. So we move on to the next speaker then, who is Mr. Franz Hankome, a colleague from NUST. He serves as lecturer for mechanical engineering and marine engineering at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. A quick bio for him, and as I do that, Mr. Hangome, if you could just start to make your way to the front. Mr. Hangome completed a Bachelor of at Polytechnic of Namibia in 2015 and worked for the Ministry of Mines and Energy, Department of Energy on numerous renewable energy projects, 2015 to 2018. He joined the Namibia University of Science and Technology, Department of Mechanical Engineering and Marine Engineering, DMME, in 2018 as a junior lecturer. He has a Master of Technology in Thermal Engineering from the National Institute of Technology, India, obtained in 2021. He works as a lecturer at NUST, the department mentioned earlier, DMME, where he teaches undergraduate courses such as fluid mechanics, thermodynamics, power plant technologies, and engineering material technologies. Mr. Ankome, the floor is yours, and please a round of applause as he walks up the podium. Thank you. 10 minutes. Shorter would be appreciated. Thank you. Great. Off you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Franz Angome, as it was said. So I'm a lecturer for engineering students. Mostly I teach mechanical engineering students at NUST. And my presentation basically has 5 slides about there because I am actually being waited by my students. There are about 190 of them waiting for me at the moment. And so I'm going to run through it. So the focus here was to prepare a speech or to say something on social, economic, and sustainability when it comes to training, especially on a training aspect of it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just, if I might just get an indication how I change the slides, because we are going to go to the next one. Some way. Okay.
Entrepreneurial skills at work here, sir.
Okay, so there we go. So when it comes to training, education, like I said, I teach engineers, so that's what I'm going to focus on. But since the Tvet team has adopted me, I've worked on a lot of Tvet project, curriculum development, and so forth. So they've been trying to adopt me to Tvet. So, but I'm going to focus on education, engineering specifically. So I teach close-cutting students from first year up until to final year. So when it comes to teaching, the social factors, the economic factors, and sustainability issues are close-cutting for each of the subjects. So if you're teaching a course, you're going to look at all of those as part of a course. And then there is obviously things like renewable as a course, renewable energy technology as a course, and so forth. So those ones are specific courses that are there. But when it comes to all of these factors that we are looking at, they should be close-cutting through the course. Whether you are teaching engineering, material technology, whether you are teaching finance, sustainability has to be there, economic factors have to be there, and social issues also are very important. In fact, one of my first year engineering students group this semester, I was looking at material engineering technologies, and it talks about how to choose material for specific application, and obviously one of the decision factors you are going to look at is the social issues. Some of them are going to be economics. Your design has to make sense. Some of the students, one of the group was looking at the bridge that recently collapsed, the one that is connecting to a robot. So they went there and then they looked at what are the social issues that have to do with us, what are the economic factors that went in there, and what is the sustainability issues that have to do with that. So that's issues or these factors, they should be close-cutting wherever you are teaching it. And then when it comes to teaching, so you can do teaching different ways. So I teach engineering students, so these are very highly practical courses where you have to do your practice, you have to do some building, you have to construct, you do a research, and then you construct a model, and then from that model, you're gonna have to then present your idea. So I wanted to focus on certain topics that I have worked with my students, my final year students, Bachelor of Technology students. So one of them is one that is titled for solid waste pickers, a handling system for solid waste pickers at a site. So you have landfills, and in those landfills, obviously you have those waste pickers, or you might call them scavengers. They don't like that name, but we call them waste pickers. So those waste pickers, they need a waste handling system. So one of the students had looked at that, and they have designed the prototype, and they have, obviously, the social factor is there, the economic factor has to be looked at, because you are designing a system for people who cannot afford their system to be expensive, so you have to look at those. And I am emphasizing on these projects because these are my students that have graduated. As my bio has said, I'm still new to the field, but I have graduated. I think I feel like I've graduated a good number of students by now that I'm about to retire from the academic, provided that is there. So that's one of the students. He has graduated, I think, maybe in 2021, if I'm not wrong. And then there is another project that has looked at the Katutula solar water heating system. So we had to work with the student. He has to do the installation process, or reinstall the system, because it was supposed to be dismantled. So they have to install a new system. So what one of the students has to do with that, obviously being attached to the industry, people who actually know the job. So because he was learning the skills. So that's one of the students' project as well that one of my students has looked at. So here I want to emphasize, because all of these projects, they have a social factor in them, they have a sustainability factor in them, and obviously economic is also there. And then there is another student, so the one that says designing, construction, and testing the assessment of thermal efficiency of a solar collector. That student only graduated the recent graduation of NAST, so that was also my student. So again, sustainability, socio-economic factor are there, and the economics as well. And then there is another student, which is on the other side. So this one was looking at a distillation system for a small-scale household. I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up in a village. So I look at projects that are specifically to the people, that have involved people in them. And those are projects that I engage my students on. And it's a research project. You have to design the system, calculate your economics, and then you have to construct a prototype. So it has to be a practical project. So that's what we want. So that's why we are looking at applied research and education as an issue. Here are some of the challenges we are going to face when you are looking at applied research and education. Some of them is the siloed approach. So we don't really work together with, let's say, the social department, the faculty of science, because we are in engineering. We might even want Tvet, since I'm here, and this is why I like the Tvet team, and that's why I'm always on the Tvet. So I am looking forward to working my engineering students and the Tvet students, or learn to work together on a certain project, and that's what I am talking about when I'm looking at the siloed approach. The other part is the misalignment between the career and the research. I mean, the misalignment between the research and the career the students end up taking. So most of these projects, they can obviously be developed further. They can work into something, for example, the waste speakers handling system that we worked on. It can be worked further. It can be turned into some kind of a business idea or anything. But once the student graduates, obviously that project phases off, unless I get another student who's going to then improve the system that we're working on. And then obviously we want ideally our idea not only to end up at our workshops and in our offices and in our research papers that we publish, because research paper is also part of it, but we would want industry to off-take some of this project and develop the idea further and maybe take over the students as well. And then the other thing is, the other challenge I would have to put here is the curriculum rigidity that we have. So we are training engineers, so you train them according to the engineering theory. Obviously, that doesn't change, so it's the same. But then we want to teach our students soft skills. We want to teach them entrepreneurship. We want to teach them how do you pitch your idea to people, and so forth. So, but then the curriculum itself is the same over. We might develop it, but then we can also then make it too specialized, or we can then keep it a focus on a specific idea. So we have a broader curriculum when it looks at that. And then with that, I'm done. Here is my last slide, which I like. I use this slide as even for my students, but I have used this slide over the time that I've been working. I believe that energy is the heartbeat of the universe. I always tell my students, if you are focusing on energy, wherever you find yourself at, there is always going to be somebody who needs your energy. So that's what I am interested on, and that's what I work on. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You take a seat.
Yeah, I wish I could attend some of your lectures. Quite engaging. Thank you. Have we got Mr. Limbo's presentation loaded now? He's walking to the front, I suppose. Yeah, it looks like it's loaded up. So please welcome. A round of applause for him, please. Thank you. 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Lombo. Again, good morning. I think it's not afternoon yet, all participants. As I was introduced, my name is Nicholas Limbo. Please excuse that long profile. I was just copying and pasting, recalling what I have done throughout my life. I think I was just also intrigued by the last presenter, the second last before him, who spoke about the absence of the young people, and I was like looking around the room to locate my colleague Martin Wilkinson and some other colleagues from GIZ, and I said, but what happened to the 28 green hydrogen youth ambassadors that I recently was involved in interviewing? And I think at the core of what we are doing, really, I think it's the young people, and I just started realizing about 2 or 3 years ago the very tremendous speed at which my beard started turning gray and white. And then I realized that, look, I mean, time is running out here. So I think we really need to think about how do we really reach out to the young people. I'm going to just drive you a little bit to where my colleague Joseph ended. So I'm just going to step a little bit further past some of the things that he presented and just trigger a little bit of discussion around what we do at the program and what we've been doing in terms of really looking at issues around availability of skills to drive green industrialization vis-a-vis industry demand for the skills. So I'm just going to run a little bit beyond some of these, the task force issues that Joseph spoke about. So I'm just going to run to here. So what we did when we were developing the National Skills Development Strategy for the green hydrogen industry, we really worked very closely with the operating green hydrogen projects in the country. Notably, we worked closely with Hyphen, with Dowres Green Hydrogen Village. We also worked with Clinergy and High Iron and Zero and HDF. So part of the data that we collected and analyzed came from these projects. And I think I must also state here that our particular interest was more on occupations that align to the green hydrogen and derivatives industry and the broader green industrialization agenda. And we also then looked at data from the supply side, meaning we then sort of went into the Council for Higher Education database, and we collected a lot of data from our colleagues from the NTA to really look at the Tvet data. Our interest was particularly looking at how many graduates, or what is the sort of workforce supply outlook that sort of aligns to addressing the projected skills demand for the industry. I must say that I think contextualizing to the context of green industrialization and environmental stewardship, we really need to really acknowledge the fact that the whole green hydrogen industry, first of all, it's really a new industry in our country, and not only for us worldwide, but there is a huge aspect of environmental stewardship and health and safety, international health and safety standards, so many ISO standards that we actually need to ensure that our sort of skills development interventions align with these international health and safety regulations and standards and certification. There are so many of them. And I think that is very critical because I think we looked at some of these aspects from that angle because we sort of I'm going to sort of zoom at the end into a sort of implementation plan that we are envisaging, that we have been working collaboratively with our development partners, the EU, GIZ, Jerry and his team, and we sort of are trying to acclimatize our work into a sort of national implementation plan that is to guide the development and rollout of skills development interventions. I must also say here that we sort of are looking at a very holistic approach. We are looking at all lower level Tvet provision, including short courses and micro-credentials, articulating that into mainstream Tvet, into higher education, and also a critical aspect of research and development. Hence, we sort of are thinking around how do we replicate a model of skills development hubs, specifically trying to ignite that in the southern green hydrogen production valley. So let me quickly then go to what we did. So you would see that we looked at, we first looked at the Tvet enrollments and graduates over the years, and specifically we looked at the years from 2020 to 2024. And like I said, we were particularly interested in looking at what we referred to as manufacturing, engineering, and technology occupations that are really aligned with the green industrialization. And some of our findings, I don't know, they sort of were quite a bit scary in the sense that I think I would just highlight some of the very, very key findings that are important for us to think about. We go back here, Tvet. Right, so from here, we said that one of our major findings was that there's, I'm trying to find that slide, graduates between domains. Anyway, I was just looking at that slide. I don't know where it went to. So one of our major findings was that there was about 2% of the total working population that had Tvet qualifications in the key occupational areas that are aligned to green industrialization. I know, I see Jerry is looking at me. Even the last time when we presented this, he looked at me with the same look. And I said, well, we are specifically looking at some of those occupations that are aligned to green industrialization and the associated value chains, right? So as we go on, we sort of want to really project the sort of challenge that is in front of us. So we looked at some of these occupations as really being within the value chain of green hydrogen production, distribution, and maybe local value chain, local value addition. So we said that these are the key occupations that we are looking at. Yes, we may have all these. I know within the Tvet system, our colleagues probably will be saying, yes, we do have a lot of bricklayers and boiler makers. I remember recently I mentioned this to a team from NIMT, and I said, look, with the Cleanergy doing their second phase from Arandis to just after Aphrodite Beach, we are talking about, for instance, massive welding work in terms of, for example, if you have to weld the pipelines that would be transporting ammonia from that plant maybe to the terminal that they're planning to set up. And I said, the scale of welding that we are talking about, I would probably refer to some of the colleagues that we went on a study tour with in May this year to the Netherlands. And we were in the northern part of the Netherlands, the very gas-producing part of the Netherlands. Dr. Elombo was also among that team. And we sort of observed a very huge pipes being offloaded from a vessel that came from China, and they were being now loaded to another vessel that was taking those offshore, because these are used to install wind turbines offshore. So it's essentially like a whole big round pipe where a wind turbine gets sort of inserted in when it's installed at sea. And I remember I remarked that, you see, to fabricate that pipe, the diameter of one of those pipes is probably bigger than the size of this podium where we stand. And I said, this is something that you cannot fabricate by hand. It's probably going to be done by machine, because if you do it by hand, you'll probably be blind. It'll probably take you 20 years to finish. And we sort of looked at, I sort of mentioned to the team at NIMT that is the scale of welding we are talking about. We are not talking about a welder who does our bagular bars at home. We are talking about a welder who works on a pipe of that diameter, a compressed tank that can hold ammonia or hydrogen without the risk of it leaking. And really, if you look at what we have there, I know we do have a lot of artisans in this country that have been churned out of our Tvet system. But what we are talking about is specialized Tvet skills that, like I'm saying, encompass that sort of environmental awareness, environmental stewardship, and the health, international health and safety compliance standards. And I think many of us here are key players in Tvet, and I'm just saying this, that yes, we'll have a lot of these deliberations at a workshop we are planning with the development partners in a week's time in Kitpansop, but this is the sort of the enormity of the challenge that lies ahead of us to prepare our workforce for this industry. Yes, we know everyone, we are excited about this industry, but we need to sit back and ask ourselves, do we have the skills, do we have the capacity to develop these skills within our current workforce? Great. So I will skip this for now. And I just want to rush a little bit to, of course, here we spoke about, again, very critical. We sort of are trying to align, hence the idea of establishing what we have coined in a partnership we have established with GIZ and the EOD project. We have coined the concept of, let's set up energy training hubs. And these are envisaged around the same sort of energy, green hydrogen production zones that have been identified in the National Green Industrialization Strategy that my colleague Joseph was presenting earlier. But again, if you look at this map, it tells you the distribution of Tvet, particularly Tvet providers across the country. And this is why we are saying part of what we are thinking is to really see how do we collaboratively work. Luckily, the NTA is also part of this partnership. How do we collaboratively bring all these key players to work together to establish these green hydrogen or energy skills development hubs across the country, right? So part of what we did, which I was trying to rush to, again, remember we were focusing on what we referred to as manufacturing, engineering, and technology occupations. We looked at the data, when we sift through and analyzed the data we got from the Council of Higher Education, we were looking at what are the universities churning out. And one of the striking, very, very striking findings, if you look at that slide, yes, we have a lot of graduates in social humanity fields like education, business, accounting for 23%, for instance. Then we've got about 13% in the health and social fields. And if you look at where our interest is, where we have manufacturing, engineering, and technology, the graduate numbers are very low there, right? So I'm being requested to rush up. So I think what we are trying to do is, I wanted to rush to this last slide. So this gives you really a sort of rough a contrast in terms of looking at the demand side between now and 2030 and the sort of skills availability across these occupations. So we're looking at, for example, we've got on the demand side, we'll probably need about 4,300 engineers and really specialized technicians, and around about 29,000 construction workers, for instance, and a couple of those occupations. But if you look at the supply side, what is available, and remember that what we are saying here is, yes, the demand side, like I said, there's a lot of international certification, international compliance that is required to operate in this industry. I think Ndakolute mentioned a very key point when he said, when you look at some of these emerging industries like oil and gas, you would find that if you go to the oil rigs that are docking at the harbor in Valvis Bay, it's mostly Filipinos and Indians who are welding there, who are doing all sorts of work. Why? Because they've mastered the art of ensuring that they are internationally compliant with all the certification, health and safety certification, environmental stewardship certification that is required to operate in these very highly sensitive, highly environmentally and health and safety conscious industries. So just to give you a teaser in terms of really the enormity of the challenge that lies ahead for us as key role.
Dear delegates, how are you doing? All right, thank you very much, moderator. As my name was said earlier, I'm Elise Owanga, the head of trainee support at Okakarara VTC. And today, I will present to you the integration of innovation into circular economy based on Okakarara VTC case study. But before I go into my presentation, I would like to give you one of the moral lessons that I have learned from my favorite book called Who Moved My Chase. This book has a moral lesson that teaches that those who embrace change and takes proactive steps towards new opportunities will thrive. Okakarara VTC, being the technical skill provider, has a vision to become an affordable, sorry. What did I do? Did I switch it off? Okay, to become a formidable center for Tvet and entrepreneurial excellence. For us to realize that, we have came up with a case study whereby we hold an innovation week for our students so that they become entrepreneurs, so that they change the innovation, the pretense of become employees. So that is just an introduction about our OVTC. So we are actually located in Ochozonjupa region, dedicated to equip trainees with practical and entrepreneurial skills. We have came up with a theme, or the Innovation and Circular Economy event, the 2025 Innovation Entrepreneurship Week, which was aimed to fostering creativity, problem solving, and sustainable innovation among trainees. Our theme this year was Trash to Treasure. This challenged each department within our center to explore innovation ways to repurpose, recycle, and reuse materials from the workshop. This was birthed by us finding out that whenever we are doing our training, our daily training activity, we are having a lot of offcuts. And these offcuts, they are being discarded daily, and there is no any use. So we decided, let's have an idea so that we can turn this waste into usable and marketable products rather than disposing it. Because at the end of the day, it's bringing rain pollution, and that is not what we want for our environment. The initiative was well aligned with Namibia's circular economy vision and green skill development agenda for the Tvet institution. Challenges that were identified, we have identified that there is a lot of increasing waste accumulation from training workshops that are not, sometimes some of them, they are not biodegradable, limited awareness of recycle and resources recovery, missed opportunity for entrepreneurship, innovation, and cost saving. So we were having a guiding question: how could OVTC reduce this waste generation and simultaneously create useful products for business opportunity from the workshops? So we decided, okay, we need the project objective to develop practical, eco-friendly, and marketing product using workshop waste material, to promote circular economy principle through hands-on Tvet training by using our trainees and trainers, to empower trainees with innovations and entrepreneurial skills for self-empowerment and sustainability. Now, how do we align this with our national goals and global goals? Namibia Vision 2030 promotes sustainability innovation driven through youth employment. Our Harambee Prosperity Plan 3, fostering inclusive and green economic growth. Our SDGs, number 12, responsible for consumption and production. NTA Green Tvet strategy, advancing environment and circular economy integration into vocational training. That is where we have aligned our theme for this year. How did we implement this project? The project was implemented through the following phases, or the following process. First of all, we have waste identification. We identify waste from the workshop, categorize them into wood, metal, cloth, plastic, and so forth. Then from there, we design and ideation. Trainee participate in design thinking sessions to generate products or products ideas. Then from there, the trainee then developed the prototype, whereby we were using either it's welding and carpentry, they complement each other, use different items to produce different items. Wooden stool, tables, cutting tables, benches, and many others. Braai stand and chairs from welding, key holders, clothing, dresses, and many other cushion, decorative items, and so forth from clothing. So then another process that we took is to finish and branding the products. Each item was then polished, painted, and then labeled for the market. Then we do a showcasing and evaluation where we have then our innovation day for our products are displayed, and then the public has to look at it and also buy. The integration with the circular economy principle, the project embodied the 3 core principles of circular economy: design out waste and pollution, converting waste into usable material so that we can be able to reduce pollution, keeping material in use, extending the life cycle of training materials, because some of the offcuts, they are so big that one can be able to reproduce something, or you can buy a complementary product and then change that product. Regenerating natural system, reducing pressure on the environment, and that is our core idea of doing that, to protect the environment. The initiative also encouraged sustainable consumption and production patterns among the trainees. What did we learn? What did our trainees learn from this innovation theme of innovation skills? The skill learned and achieved, our trainees were able to learn technical skills in their area of expertise. They were able to learn skills on how to run a business, to do costing, marketing, business pitching, business plan writing, and also business planning using recycled products, because we are changing something from nothing. And then they were also able to learn how to produce material without using a lot of money, not really costly. Soft skills, team collaboration, thinking, critical thinking, communication, and environmental awareness. They were able to work in teams, critical think on what is that we can produce from nothing. Environmental impact, reduce workshop waste by at least 60% through reuse and recycling, promote a culture of environmental responsibility within OVTC. Educational impact, enhance green skill integration into training program, strengthen the connection between practical training and entrepreneurship, as well as economic impact, generated income from sales of upscale cycled products during the event, and spark an interest in sustainable small and medium enterprises among the trainees. Although we have run this innovation week very well, there were some challenges that were encountered during the inception and also during the week of entrepreneurship and innovation. We were having inconsistent supply of reusable waste materials. Some of the materials, they are not enough so that we can be able to produce as much products as we can. Limited space for storing and sorting recycled items. We don't have enough rooms to do this. Shortage of specialized tools, protective gear for certain production tasks. Need for more structured mentorship in product commercialization, and limited funding and sponsorship. The lesson learned: waste material have a potential economic value when approached creatively. Collaboration between different trades, department, enhance innovation. Continuous support and mentorship are key sustainable green projects, and innovation in Tvet must go hand in hand with environmental stewardship. So for future, we are trying to establish permanent green innovation hub at OVTC, integrating trash to treasure as part of our entrepreneurship and life curriculum, skill curriculum, partnership development with local recycling company, SME, mentorship and product scaling. With this one, at least we are at the advanced collaboration with most of our partners like IUM, NAST, NCRST, all those are coming on board, and we are at advanced stage, and expansion also of the initiative for surrounding community for awareness participation. So that is where we are seeing the future. So in conclusion, the 2025 Innovation Entrepreneurship Week at OVTC demonstrated that waste is not a problem, but an opportunity. The Trash to Treasure initiative proved that through innovation, vocational trainees can contribute to Namibia's circular economy, create sustainable products, and inspire community-driven green enterprises. I thank you.